pleasure to be able to join you today and discuss an issue that I think is of incredible importance for Minnesota, and that's the issue of broadband access. We spent a lot of time here in the last couple of years discussing this issue, and before I say anything, I should give a lot of credit to folks who've been working throughout Minnesota on this issue, from individual communities in every corner of the state, various foundations, including the Landon Foundation, our current Governor's Task Force on Broadband, the previous Governor's Task Force on Broadband, and also we have our Office of Broadband Development, all doing incredibly good work on this issue. Not to mention the scores of hundreds and thousands of Minnesotans who may not be organized around this issue, but nonetheless care deeply about it. Today we have our broadband article calling for $85 million one-time appropriation for our border-to-border broadband fund, which was created in response to very specific feedback we garnered in a broadband listening tour in 2014. And during that tour, we heard three themes arise from folks who showed up in all corners of Minnesota as we discussed the issue of broadband access. The first is there's no one-size-fits-all to our broadband challenges in Greater Minnesota. Roughly 20% of our Greater Minnesota lacks access at basic speed levels. The fundamental challenge boils down to the lack of proper investment capital in a short return on investment time frame for providers and cooperatives doing good work, but of limited means in serving hard-to-reach areas. And the third theme that arose from that listening tour is we've talked about this issue a lot, we've admired the problem, but now is the time to act. And there's a sense of urgency here, Mr. Chair and committee members, to act and to extend vital 21st century networks to hard-to-reach areas in Minnesota. So with that, we created our Office of Broadband Development in 2014. They've done incredibly good work. And the year in 2014, we created the Border-to-Border Broadband Fund. And in its 2 rounds of funding, we've devoted about $30 million to extending vital network connectivity to roughly 10,000 homes throughout Minnesota, roughly 1,000 businesses, and hundreds of anchor institutions, like schools, libraries, and hospitals. And what we're asking for today is to continue that effort in the years ahead with an $85 million appropriation. Our Governor's Task Force currently reports that the broadband infrastructure deficit in Minnesota could be as high as $3 billion. Of course, the state isn't going to single-handedly address that issue, but if we're able to incent more investment into hard-to-serve areas, we might be able to take a good whack at the problem. And lastly, I should mention that we are going to propose here, in addition to $85 million, I hope in the form of an amendment, the CDF 22 amendment, updating our state speed goals and applying them to our broadband fund. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to stand for any questions, or if somebody would be willing to move the CDF 22 amendment.
So, Senator Schmit, a couple of questions. First of all, the federal government has appropriated $85 million for Minnesota for the next 5 years, 6 years.
Well, Mr. Chair, there is the Connect America Fund at the federal level, and that is devoting $85 million to certain areas and to certain providers in Greater Minnesota. And it's a 6-year time horizon, $85 million a year.
So when you say it's for certain areas, what's the definition of certain areas?
Well, there are areas that are more poorly served, that do not, they fall well below our state threshold for broadband, which is currently 25 by 3 in Minnesota. And there's a small handful of traditional telco providers that will benefit from the federal dollars. But we could show you a map, I don't have it with me, but it's a limited part of Greater Minnesota. There are quite a few markets and areas that would not be impacted by Connect America Fund dollars.
So are you able to describe it? Is it population centers? Is it towns under 1,000? What kind of areas are serviced as opposed to areas not serviced?
It's areas that do qualify for, or that are provided with service or could be provided with service to traditional telcos. There's a handful of them that are receiving funds from the federal government, and there are areas that do not meet basic thresholds of 4x1 service throughout the state.
And the second question I have is, part of the language in the article that's being presented says 2% of the appropriations will go to the commissioner for costs. So what are we getting for the 2% that they're not already doing?
Well, Mr. Chair and Committee, it's vitally important that we measure progress in this area. And there was a federally funded process for mapping broadband connectivity that came out of the ARRA effort. And those dollars no longer continue. So last year we began funding a state approach to mapping broadband access throughout the state. I had an economics professor in graduate school who said what gets measured gets done, and that's certainly true when it comes to broadband. We've got to make sure where we are in order to have a sense as to where we want to go. And so continuing those mapping efforts is vitally important to this discussion. We are making progress every year, but unfortunately that progress has been slow. Mr. Chair, I could add that previous Governor's Task Force on Broadband recommended some basic speed goals for Minnesota. By 2015, those goals stated that every household and business would have access to a minimum to 10 megabits per second download, 5 megabits per second upload speed. And we fell about 20% short of that goal in Greater Minnesota, about 10% short of that goal statewide on average. And so we've got some work to do in deploying investment capital into those hard-to-reach areas where the return on investment just isn't as competitive as more highly populated areas.
So the 1.7 million is appropriated in that section. We used to establish the metrics for what's happening with broadband.
And continue that effort of mapping, working with the provider community to establish progress that's made on an annual basis in deploying networks and increasing access to those areas that currently lack it in our state accepted speed goals. And then also the broadband office, our Office of Broadband Development with Indeed, they're a pretty lean operation, and we expect a lot of them. In addition to operating this fund, we have high hopes that they're breaking silos between state agencies and helping various parts of government utilize technology and broadband in new and important ways. And there's a whole host of areas where they can be effective for us, whether it's one-to-one initiatives or telehealth or dig once policies. And so we've had this fund, and that's been the focus for the last couple of years, but there's more work that this office does do. But administering this fund is a competitive grant process. It does involve some staff time.
Would you like to explain the 022 amendment that's been distributed?
Sure, Mr. Chair, and members, the amendment that has been distributed draws from two bills that I introduced privately or previously that had worked their way through the committee process, Senate File 2447 and Senate File 2448. And essentially what this does is it takes updated state speed goals that were included in the 2016 Governor's Task Force on Broadband recommendations and updates our state speed goals that are currently in statute. So in Section 4, you'll see that no later than 2022, all Minnesota businesses and homes shall have access to high-speed broadband that provides minimum download speeds of at least 25 megabits per second and minimum upload speeds of at least 3 megabits per second. That's one goal. Second goal, no later than 2026, all Minnesota businesses and homes will have access to at least one provider of broadband with download speeds of at least 100 megabits per second and upload speeds of at least 20 megabits per second. And so we put those state speed goals in place of our 2015 speed goals that unfortunately were not met. So we're revising the state speed goals per the Governor's Task Force report. We're also applying those speed goals in Section 3 to our definitions of unserved and underserved, respectively, as it pertains to our reported Board of Broadband Fund. Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to elaborate on that if you'd like.
Any questions about the megabits? Senator Thompson.
Mr. Chairman, so how does the redefining of our goals affect somebody like, let's say, a Century Link who's building out broadband in rural Minnesota at one down and 10 up, one up, 10 down. So how does, what will happen next in that particular area?
Sure. Mr. Chair, if I could just maybe take a moment and create the context for the state speed goals and how we've applied them to our thresholds. In 2014, when we created the Border-to-Border Broadband Fund, we used the federal definition of broadband, which at the time was 4x1, to define underserved areas. The FCC has recently updated its definition of broadband to 25x3. So for the second round of funding in our Border-to-Border Broadband Fund, 25x3 was the definition of unserved in Minnesota. And in 2014, we created the underserved designation, which was 10x5, which was our state speed goal for 2015. And so what we're proposing to do here is apply, or essentially leave that federal definition of broadband at 25x3 as the threshold for unserved, and apply our state speed goal for 2026 to our definition of underserved. All the while, our priority has always been on the unserved parts of the state, the hardest to reach areas. And so nothing will change with that from the previous rounds to this new round, which includes this funding. Priority will be given to the unserved areas, those that lack access to 25x3. That was the same as it was in the last funding round. It will be the same moving forward. What we do though, however, is apply that state speed goal of 100x20 service to our definition of underserved. So there could possibly be some more parts of Minnesota that would qualify, but they would not have primary priority. they would not be unserved. So, Mr. Chair, to your question, this policy could help better leverage federal dollars to invest in 21st century networks that are going to be competitive for decades ahead. And that's the intent here, is to give both our applicants and our Office of Broadband some flexibility with the keen understanding that the unserved areas are those of greatest priority. However, giving them some priority to best play out the federal dollars that are available to some of our providers.
So, Mr. Chairman, my point is that there have been some broadband deployments already. A company like CenturyLink is getting capped with dollars in the build out, and the speeds that they're putting in are nothing like what's in this bill. So, how does that affect? How is this bill affecting what they are deploying, like this summer? That will be much different than what this is. Does this require them to do something else, or does this just provide a priority to someone who's willing to do this speed?
Mr. Chair, this does not directly guarantee that we're going to have more robust networks. What it does do, though, is it ensures that their service territories will be eligible for the grant fund, and I would encourage them to apply for grant funding if they would like, so that they're able to extend the reach of fiber farther, which would enhance the robustness of their networks and the service and the bandwidth. And so that's what I'm hoping to accomplish here, is that if we're making their service territories eligible for the state grant fund, that they can, too, apply for state grant dollars and build networks that are built for the 21st century.
So, Mr. Chairman, this does not require them to build out their networks to the speeds that are in this agreement.
Mr. Chair, if any applicant were to receive state broadband fund dollars, they would have to build up networks that were scalable to 100 megabits per second symmetrical service. That's a network that's built for the 21st century. And so if they receive state grant dollars, they have to invest in technology for the future.
So, Mr. Chairman, so if they have already received broadband dollars before this bill would pass, does this apply to them, their build out that they might be doing this summer?
Mr. Chair, this would apply prospectively moving forward.
Is there further discussion on the proposed amendment? Does anyone wish to move? Okay. Should I ask against it, Commissioner Schmit? Maybe.
This amendment is important for our funds, so I would hope that somebody would be willing to move the amendment.
Oh, Senator Marty decides to move the amendment by editorial comment. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Probably not, yes. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Schmit, I asked a question a minute ago relative to 2%, and Mr. Nauman pointed out the section of statute. So I asked him, apparently, the present statute already sets up a fund to do something. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, we have funded the Office of Broadband Development with a separate appropriation ongoing in the base for the activities that occur outside of administering the broadband fund. As I had mentioned previously, there are a lot of other things that we ask our Office of Broadband Development to do besides administer the fund. And so what we've done in the past is allow them to use a small portion of the appropriation for administering the fund.
But there's already the ability to transfer money into that fund in the present statute. So why are we, in effect, doing this twice?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was under the impression we're being consistent with what we've done in the past in terms of funding the fund and also the cost for administering the fund.
Okay, I don't have, Mr. Nauman showed the section to me.
So,
you want to read the...
Mr. Chair, if you please do. So, first and foremost, it's probably worth noting that the $85 million that's proposed in this article would be deposited into 116, the fund created under 116J 396, the border-to-border broadband fund. And then there's a series of expenditures outlined in that are eligible for those resources to be used. And among them is money in the account may be used only to grant awards under another section of law, including costs by the Department of Deployment and Economic Development to administer that section. So I think, in a sense, it appears at least, I think to your point, that there might be some cross-feeding or redundancy.
Senator Schmit?
Well, Mr. Chair, this is the first I would have heard of that, and I did not bring the article to your committee, so I'm speaking on behalf of it. But to my knowledge, we have been consistent with what we've done in the past 20 rounds.
Let me ask Senator Schmit. Obviously, assuming we pass this article, we do it to place the full bill to be heard hopefully at the end of the week. Maybe you can check on that. I mean, my inclination is, I'm not sure I would ask for an amendment now, but maybe you can check on what seems to be duplicative language between what you're presenting in Section B, Part B of Section 2, and what's in present statute. And I don't blindside you with this because you don't have the statute in front of you. So please take a look at each of the phenomenon relative to that. It sure looks like we're creating that much more of a fund for the department to use. And obviously your intent is to make sure we get the money out for service to areas that are underserved in terms of broadband. And this will take not huge amounts of money, but it's going to take some money away from that. And if they already have the ability to do it, I'm not quite sure why you would want to do it, given the strength of your advocacy for extended broadband.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy. Thanks for bringing that potential discrepancy to my attention. I'd be happy to look at it and work with you in the committee to get this right.
Is there further discussion on the proposed broadband article? Does anybody like any further questions for Senator Schmit? Would anybody like to move the article? Senator Stone moves that the broadband article as amended be recommended passed and be referred for the well, I'm glad we got staff here this morning. Be referred for possible inclusion in the supplemental finance bill, which is yet pending. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Senator Schmit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.